forgot I had taken off the just starting stream, so I'm like here, like I'm streaming. What's happening? Oh my god, I'm live. How are you, late bloomer? I hope you're doing well. Welcome in. Just trying to get started. Usually I give it a few minutes because give the alerts a second to go out. But other than that, yeah, hope all is well with you. Let's see, how have I been? Yeah, no, I'm not doing anything. I just like try to get set up. It's inevitable. Like streaming, I don't know if you do any streaming, but it can be a little more complicated than people realize. Like you see these people playing video games and like they're idiots. Some of them are just idiots. Some of them are not. But like I have two monitors set up. I've got a laptop now with a touchscreen laptop Stream Deck going. It's these monitors have webcams built in, so I have to there's always problems getting things like organized. It's kind of interesting, but it's just like, yeah, it's not as simple as it looks sometimes. When I initially set everything up, I just did it got it working, just go, just start streaming. Now I'm trying to do a little bit more sophisticated stuff, so we'll see. It can break. It can. Things break, and I'm sure you've seen, if you're on Twitch enough, you've definitely seen streamers go, oh no, my alerts are busted, because that happens a lot. My alerts are not currently busted as far as I know. But anyhow, let me know if you have a selection. I mean, just gonna do my normal thing today. I'm just a little bit, I'm grumpy, I'm grumpy. Yeah. Streaming is not it's not an obvious or easy thing to do very consistently. Things break on the regular. You're relying on subsystems that you don't control. And even all live broadcasts, even on broadcast TV, they have troubles, and they own everything. And then we're doing this on the cheap with basically different programs that are really, really excellent. They're amazingly excellent. OBS Studio is an amazing bit of software, but frankly, it's open source software. It updates regularly. Yes, well, there's also a reason why people are crazy enough to be like, I'm gonna broadcast on the internet and people are gonna watch me. There is that too. So there are delusions of grandeur. I was just reading something about some streamer got banned or timed out not timed out, but they got banned from Twitch for maybe a little bit, and people are trying to figure out why. Well, they had this white nationalist. They were watching something with a white nationalist on it, and basically that person is banned from Twitch, and you're not allowed to play people banned from Twitch on Twitch, even if you're just watching them in a video or something. But I think they were talking with the guy for a few minutes. It's yeah, people give Twitch a lot of crap for this, but that was completely clear if that's what they got banned for. But they think they're gonna get away with it for some reason. And a lot of time Twitch does let things slide. It's fair, but maybe they will, maybe they won't. But getting all this working, dealing with the powers that be, Amazon, who owns Twitch, who knows? I mean, I haven't posted my videos to YouTube regularly, but last week I had a racist troll basically trying to justify racism with some, they had some research done, but it wasn't good. It wasn't you couldn't really get the sort of results that the person needed to get for their argument to go through. And they're sitting there trying to argue with me well, you're being unfair. I'm I'm not being unfair. It just isn't proved. What you're saying is wrong. And I gave him some time. And then the last one was well, they were well, we can just agree that you maybe have higher standards. And I was just no, motherfucker. I don't have higher. Yeah. Well, they were trying to be clever about it. They had some references, but the references didn't hold up once you poked at them. And so I was no, you're just wrong, because what you say is not supported by the evidence, and it's not me that is not appreciating the research. It's you that that did not understand what you were reading, and they were exactly salty about life or something because their username was something like one more try, and so that you could see that, like, I think this was like their strategy. They were trying to show people like the way the world is with one more try. I was like, no, you have an idea about the world for whatever reason. um yeah, no one likes getting the race card pulled on them. It's like, no, you're an asshole because you're an asshole, not because I'm racist. Like, that's also um a thing. Like, people pull it out and you're like, no, dude. It's like, you're a dickhead. And, like, that's not me being racist for calling a dickhead a dickhead. One of my favorite things that happened last year, and I just got brought up recently, was I was at a bar, and it was a trying to be classy bar. And some guys come in, and they order a bunch of alcohol, and then they start chugging beers. And, like, I mean slamming the beer. They just drink the whole thing. And the bartender says nicely to the folks, "Hey guys, we try not to like slam beers here. We're trying to have like more relaxed, not like party atmosphere in this place. Please don't do that." And the guy just goes, "Oh, so sorry. Don't worry about it." Then like 5 minutes later, they order another beer and they just slam the beer. And the bartender's like, "Get the fuck out. Just go. You're not listening to instruction." And they're like, "Oh, blah blah blah," and they pull the gay card because they were gay guys. And the bartender's like, "Fuck you, me too. Get out." It's like, you can't pull the gay card on me. I was like, I laughed my ass off. So it's like, me too. Get out. It's like, didn't work on that dude. And I'm sitting next to them, and I treated them nice. Like, I was nice to them, even though they were being a little raucous. So they gave me a bottle of wine that they had like taken one glass out of. So I got a mostly full bottle of wine out of it, which was cool. Let's see, we got AJP, Dialectica. Let's see if there's anything good here. Oh, that's right. I looked at this stuff last week. They didn't have any, their papers weren't available on AJP. The hereby commit account of inference. ELA Bloomer, do you have a choice in what I read, or don't care? I don't know. Let's see. I mean, Dialectica is a good journal. Let's see if we can find something. Let's see. No, forthcoming. Hanak Benyami, he's a good guy, actually. I saw him talk once. The only problem is does logic, and so the problem is, if you're gonna do logic, I can't read logic on stream because it gets too complicated. Well, this might be something. Yeah, see, the problem is now we're gonna get into formulas. Like, I don't know if you can see it, but it's mental illness stuff. Okay, we can do some like philosophy or psychology. You can go look for that. Yeah, see, the problem is, once I start having to read things like phi of open parentheses C/T 1 dot 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 C/TN, and which is really too bad because, like, this guy's an interesting person. Like, he's an interesting philosopher, and yeah. You know what I need to remember to do is get like a bunch of journals I like. So analysis is always good. Thought is good, but it's not getting published at the moment because I went to their website and it's they're changing publishers. There's philosophy and literature. I should write that down because that stuff is, even if you don't like the philosophy, they at least have literature, and that's interesting. All right, let's go look at philosophy of psychology then. Let's go for all categories. Is it under mind where they list it? I don't know if, because it might be under philosophy of science. It might also be under philosophy of mind, like philosophy of social science. What is that? Psych. All right, psychology. All right, so free will in psychology. Is there no just like moral psychology, self consciousness in psychology. There's no like master one. There's just moral psychology. All right, moral psychology is the big topic. It looks like philosophy of psychology. This is what we're talking about. Okay. Parapsychology. I should go read something in parapsychology. Let's see. Theory of mind. Issues in psychology, development, cognitive psychology, social, psychopathology. All right. Let's just do miscellaneous philosophy of psychology. See what's available. There used to be. Oh, this is material to categorize, order categories. Let's see. Well, let's see. Am I going to be able to find anything? All right, the relevance of evolutionary psychology for psychotherapy. That might be interesting. That seems like it's on in the right area too. Let's see if it's available now. Why are you not available? British Journal for Psychotherapy. Not available. That's annoying. Alright, let's see if we can just find something quick. If not, that's okay too. We'll look around for a bit. Fearing the worst yet to come, Derrida and health anxiety. That might be interesting. This is Theory in Psychology. Let's see what that is. By Molly Kelly and Emery. It is not available. Dagnabbit, people. Access options. You know, I could probably get these in some other way, but I just am like insulted by people not having their papers available. The role of conscious accessibility in skilled action. This is Review of Philosophy and Psychology. Well, let's click on it. Criteria for replication of psychological knowledge in the context of cultural historical epistemology. Okay. Introduction, understanding hunger. That's a interesting thing too. Bias and blindsight. A reply to Mikel and Lau. Let's see. I'm going to sort by publication year. See what happens. Understanding hunger. The problem was that was a introduction to something else. Let me go see if I can go find that again. Where was that hunger thing? Yeah, alright, we'll try it. Because it's 3 pages, I don't know if you could see it. But like whatever this is not an actual paper. It's like an introduction to something else. I could read this if you want. It's short. Actually, and it's not so short. It's like 4 pages but double columned. So that means it's more like 8 pages. So that actually makes it good. Let's do that. Let's see what this is the philosophy of hunger is. So there we go. Thank you for your suggestion. Work. Nice. Now, let's do this. Nope, did not work the first time. Why do you not work the first time? There we go. Second time's a charm. And let me see. Oh shit, that looked cool. Hey Retheus, how you doing? Welcome in. What are we doing? This was Late Bloomer's suggestion, so you can thank Late Bloomer. If you are interested in the link, I'm going to put it in chat now. This is Understanding Hunger. This is the philosophy of hunger. So you can grab the link, and as always, if anyone else is watching right now and you come later or whatever, you can type in chat !paper and the link will come back up. And if I ever put anything on YouTube again, it'll be in the notes below the video. So yeah, the ghrelins activate and you feel hungry. I think that's exactly what this is. So I've never, I'm sure, like, you can ask the ghrelins why they do that stuff. Maybe there's an interview with the ghrelins. Alright, so this is in Topoi, which, Topoi, I think, does, topical things. So, and I think this is just the introduction, but it's 8 pages, so, like, it's 4 pages, but, like, double, 2 columns, so it's not short. So hopefully there'll be something in here, and, we'll find out. Let me know. So, hunger and the philosophy of food. The philosophy of food is by now a relatively well-established area of research with ramifications and branches such as ethics. I bet you find ghrelin a bunch if you control wealth. I never do that. You know, this is kind of a reaction channel. I react as things come. I don't like go looking for stuff. So maybe I'll think about like searching stuff out later, but this is not how I do stuff here, Retheus. We just we let the philosophy come as it is. Ghrelins. All right. That is an interesting question, though. Like, should I go looking for stuff in papers? I don't know. All right. So we got ramifications and branches such as ethics, aesthetics, philosophy of mind and epistemology, metaphysics and ontology, and it also convenes philosophers that identify themselves with different schools and methods. Yeah. Nonetheless, it is a widespread prejudice to think that issues pertaining to food and philosophy regard the food itself. For example, what food we ought or ought not to eat under given circumstances, the aesthetic properties of food, the moral and cultural values linked to food, or how to improve extant food systems, and so on. Wait, what? Wait, I don't understand this. It is a widespread prejudice to think that issues pertaining to food and philosophy regard the food itself. Oh, okay. So it's only food related. So maybe that's why they're talking about hunger. Where does Retheus? We're going to find out where the biochemistry is. I bet that has to do with the philosophy of mind, though, because it would be the biochemistry of how your mind interacts with the chemicals that the food gives. That the food induces in your body. So, okay. The list of topics that have so far... Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to figure it out. So it's like, you can ask, but it's the first paragraph. They're going to have to tell more information going forward. You got to give people a chance to explain themselves, really. Even though it is philosophy. They should be explaining themselves, but they don't always. Yeah, just feel free to ask. But, I mean, this is why I can't tell you the answer yet. The list of topics that have so far been neglected includes the variety of volitional states associated with the concept of hunger, broadly understood. Hunger has come most... Well, one sec. Let me fix something. There we go. Hunger has come under closer scrutiny in other fields of scholarship, most notably in history. Yes, his stupid music is weird. History, psychology, studies of science and culture. As for philosophy, there are more or less recent notable examples of studies concerned with specific aspects of hunger, such as eating disorders or famine, and there are some philosophical studies on the existential meaningfulness of consuming foods. You know, that's kind of interesting. Like, do we have to have eating as a part of our full life? Like, do we existentially have to eat? Or could we just get it, like, intravenously injected into us? And would we have a lesser life because of it? Nonetheless, the bounty of issues that hunger may elicit have hitherto been only skimmed superficially. Is hunger best understood as a form of pain? Is it a complex desire? Or is it a biological condition? Is there a fundamental distinction between hunger and appetite? In what ways the conceptual study of hunger impinges over our understanding of topics such as eating disorders and obesity? Taste exists. Well, see, that's a very big statement, because that's going to be like, in philosophy of mind, that's going to be like a qualia, the existence of something for what it is to be like tasted, like the quality of being tasted. And so that's like a non-reductionist thing, and I bet people would fight you on that. And this is where the biochemistry would come in, like maybe the chemistry of taste. Late Bloomer says, I think I inherited food addiction and my life would suffer without colorful food. Yeah, like variety is the spice of life, as they say. So if like you don't have a variety of foods and it was very bland, maybe there'd be a problem. A good example of this is actually in The Matrix, when like Neo is getting his first breakfast, and they give him like this, like, what is it, tasty wheat? It's kind of like a slop, it's just slop. And so that's the question. Do you is that like a lesser human life where that's all you get to eat is this like gloop? And then, as opposed to what Cypher thinks, you go back to The Matrix, he cuts up a steak, he says, I know the Matrix is telling my brain that this steak isn't real, but like it's juicy and like tasty. And he goes, after 15 years or whatever, you know what? I don't care. Ignorance is bliss. Vithya says, not arguing it has to be food, but your argument that we get IV sustenance would mean losing taste without some other intervention. That would be a loss to being alive. Yeah, so that's the thing. What kind of loss, I guess, is my question. Is like, I could see someone actually saying, you need to be able to experience what it is to eat to be like a complete human almost, because like that's such a fundamental thing. Like I don't know of anybody who can't even eat or drink or something. So what kind of would we say that a person that couldn't eat in that way isn't really like a full human, or like maybe disabled, or I don't know what the proper term would be at that point. But like, yeah, do we actually need to have taste in an active sense to have a full life? So that would be the existential question of food. So, okay, and like this, they just ran through a bunch of questions here. Is it a biological condition? And that would get into the biochemistry. Like, are we in some sort of a chemical deficiency? You want to call hunger a chemical deficiency? I mean, maybe. Late Bloomer says, MS patients get really pissed off for that reason of loss. Yeah, that sounds completely reasonable, that like if you can't eat anymore due to like a degenerative disease, you'd be angry about it. I also saw a video recently of a rabies patient. Rabies is terrible, and it screws with your throat and stuff, and so like you can't swallow, and people like you just get like a phobia of eating. It's horrible. Yeah, so they can't even speak or express themselves. Yeah, I mean that's a neurodegenerative thing. So yeah, rabies is unbelievably bad, and yeah. So but it's because of you can't even drink anymore. You can't eat because of the trouble with your throat. Yeah, if you want to like have horror nightmares, go look at videos of rabies patients. It's unbelievable. Okay, so this special issue was put together to start covering the scholarship gap on hunger in the philosophical arena. Its idea originated from two works organized by Andrea Borghini and David Serpico at the University of Milan in fall of 2018, respectively titled The Depths of Hunger and Measuring Hunger. The goal of the workshop and then the issue is to focus on conceptual aspects of hunger that are theoretical in nature and that bear significant value-laden consequences. The approach brings together different philosophical perspectives and methods, as well as some scholars from other disciplines, psychology with the paper of these folks, that accepted the challenge to write for a philosophical audience. To introduce the issue, we shall now offer an overview of the philosophical questions that pertain to hunger, to then present the papers here collected. Okay, so this is fun, so maybe we'll get an overview of all the interesting questions. Hunger, philosophical questions. The papers contained in this issue bear witness to the wide array of themes that pertain to a philosophical study of hunger. Before delving into the details of the paper, however, it is worthy to take a step back and depict a broader picture of the topics that philosophers can peruse when it comes to hunger. In this section, we suggest 3 areas of research where philosophers can provide meaningful contributions. 1. The concept of hunger is central to frame philosophical questions pertaining to the ethics and politics of malnutrition, undernutrition, and famine. The latter, in fact, are correlated to specific conditions where agents cannot suitably satisfy their volitional states regarding food. For instance, the agent cannot procure enough food for themselves or is surrounded by too much food, or contrary to their preferences, the agent's diet is lacking or too abundant in specific nutrients. The connection between hunger and these other concepts is, nonetheless, far from being clearly established in the literature. Philosophers can offer much in this area, starting from a conceptual analysis of hunger and of its ties to other concepts. 2. Hunger can be approached from an existential point of view as a defining aspect of the human condition. In other words, hunger, understood in a broad sense, is a primary mode of being. We are born hungry. We have been hungry well longer than we can remember being alive, and well before gaining self-consciousness of our own pleasures. Each human, as a human, is endowed with an array of physiological and psychological states correlated with the act of eating. The satisfaction of hunger is one of the most complex and important ecological relationships in which we partake. Through this lens, hunger raises little explored philosophical difficulties. What sort of state is hunger? For example, is it a perception, an emotion, a mood, none of these, or all of the above? What is the relationship between hunger, desire, and pleasure? Umbrato and Phillips, as well as Kaplan in the essays contributed to this issue, advance our understanding of these questions. Also, the essay by Dean included in this issue offers a much-needed analysis of the positive values of mindless eating. 3. Finally, an appreciation of the complex facets of hunger is relevant in high-end gastronomy and can make a difference to the aesthetic value of a dining experience. Following Borghini, we can envisage 2 avenues for research here. The first is related to the constitutive role of hunger in defining specific gastronomic attitudes and perspectives, and specific schools and movements such as the Nouvelle Cuisine. The second avenue sustains whose approaches to taste that purport to go beyond what merely happens in the mouth of a diner, rather insisting that hunger is a key ingredient in providing a gastronomic experience with aesthetic worth. In fact, Pacini's paper in this issue delves into these issues. Well, this is interesting. Like, all these things are, like, completely interesting. Like, do you need to be hungry? Like, do you need to be physically hungry to have certain aesthetic experiences? Like, in some sense, you might think, okay, I need to, like, get certain aesthetic, like, you can go to a museum. But if you're not in the right mental state, like, you might get something different out of the paintings. But you might need to actually be hungry to appreciate certain meals in the right way. So that means, like, that would be a requirement of a certain physiological or psychological state. So, yeah. I don't know, but this is interesting stuff. And this is what I like about philosophy a lot of times. You get to talk about new things. Like, these are all new ideas. I mean, of course, they've all been brought up before, but this is one of the things that I think philosophy does well. And a lot of people give philosophy shit for, like, there's no answers. But this is what philosophy does well, is it goes in and talks about new areas of stuff we might consider to be interesting questions. So it doesn't, like, maybe get a lot of crazy good answers for things, but it does get a lot of really cool questions you can ask about stuff. And so this is a fun topic. Okay. To these 3 areas of research, others may be added. For instance, as the papers by Amoretti and Giordano in this issue demonstrate, reflecting on hunger is key to enhance our understanding of eating disorders. Also, to offer another example, a more nuanced conception of hunger could be put at use in devising appropriate strategies for tackling issues such as obesity, as suggested by Serpico and Borghini, also in this issue. While we cannot peruse and develop all these suggestions for further research, we hope these remarks can convince the reader that they're their fruitfulness and importance. And this word fruitfulness has been around in philosophy for a long time now, at least 100 years, but I'm sure for longer. But this is what people say when they think area of philosophy is like good for research. They always call it fruitful. And so it's like, this is just one of these I'd call it a weasel word when it's like bad, but when philosophers start calling something fruitful, that means they're very excited about it. So I mean, it is their issue, so I'm sure they're excited, but it's just something to look out for in academic philosophy when analytic people start calling things fruitful. And goes back to Frege, at least. The issue 3. This special issue is put together with the conviction that the conceptual subtleties of hunger cannot solely be investigated by a specific category of philosophers, for example, philosophers of emotion or philosophers of action, but rather require the concerted effort of several philosophical subdisciplines, as well as the contribution and validation of scholars that approach the topic from other disciplinary perspectives. The 8 papers that compose the issue highlight the complexity of the philosophical question linked to hunger and may be grouped under 2 main clusters. The Overeaters Anonymous? Maybe. I don't think philosophy is going to make you less hungry. Like, you can't eat thoughts. If you could eat thoughts, philosophers would be fat. But you can't eat thoughts. The first cluster digs into the variety of experiential states correlated with hunger and aims to uncover theoretical assumptions underpinning ethical, political, and aesthetic conceptions of hunger. We can include here the papers by Dean, Ombrato, and Phillips, Kaplan, Baccini, and Giordano. The second cluster examines the different approaches to the measurement of hunger with the goal of uncovering chief theoretical assumptions that bear important ethical and political consequences. Here we can include the papers by Amoretti, don't know how to say this, Beaulieu, and Blundell, Giordano, and Serpico and Borghini. More specifically, in defense of mindless eating, Megan A. Dean makes the case for mindless eating against a widespread opinion, most famously defended by Brian Wansink, according to which mindless eating is always a bad way of eating. Building upon Maureen C.'s account of agency, Dean convincingly shows that some forms of mindless eating ought to be regarded positively because they constitute a non-conscious but agental response to situational normative cues. Dean's paper opens up new avenues of interpretation and research over a form of eating that is quotidian and ultimately unavoidable for human beings. The links between hunger and agency are investigated also by Michel David Ombrato and Edgar Phillips in The Mind of the Hungry Agent, Hunger, Effect, and Appetite. In their paper, Ombrato and Phillips discuss the fundamental framework that may be needed to properly explain the behavior of hungry agents. Beaulieu, yeah. This is one of my failings, is I don't understand French. So I should learn French, but I don't know it. I speak English and bad English. That's basically it. They tried teaching me Spanish in a school. It didn't really take. I couldn't remember their vocab. Anyway. Alright, so you want to explain the behavior of hungry agents. To do so, they begin... thank you, late bloomer. Yeah. To do so, they begin by asking what sort of condition hunger is, suggesting that it is a complex state bearing both hedonic and somatic aspects, with the power of affecting an agent's attention. A key feature of hunger seems to be its likeness to the states that we label as needs. Hunger triggers an aversive affective reaction, which motivates an agent to seek out ways to accommodate it by, for existence, consuming some possibly specific food. At the same time, Ombrato and Phillips suggest that hunger is also linked to positive affective reactions, including interest and appetite. I think this is like really interesting because you've got things that it affects an agent's attention. And that's kind of hard. That would make it sort of like a mental normative thing to direct the way you're looking at the world. And the idea that like you're hungry and so you zero in on food, how does hunger affect how you're looking at the world, like your eyes, like what you're looking at? So it's the same thing. Like you could say like, well, you're horny and you look at like sexy parts of someone's body or whatever. And so this is similar. It's like, how do these specific things direct your behavior, your agent's attention? And so why, like, that's sort of an unusual sort of thing that doesn't even happen other times. Like when you're angry, you might ignore certain stuff, but like you might focus on like what you're angry about. But like hunger, it's like, well, you're looking, or when you're thirsty, like you have to focus on liquids. And so it's like, how does that sort of thing happen where your attention is actually directed in certain ways? In Hunger Hermeneutics, David M. Kaplan adopts David M. Kaplan adopts a different methodology to inquire how hunger affects our agency, which is more rooted in the phenomenological tradition. Kaplan's initial focus is on lack of knowledge that typically accompanies individual agency when it comes to hunger. Such lack may be primarily attributed to the influences of our bodies, of unconscious desires, and of society over our representations of our hunger states. And yet, Kaplan suggests, hunger also displays some peculiar forms of certainty that is provided by internal influences. Our internal senses suggest us when to stop eating and when to seek out more food, and taste, of course, guides us in the quest for food. It is thus in the dialectic between the wide range of internal sources of information versus those that are regarded as external that we can try to make sense of the peculiar agentive state characteristic of hunger. With the paper by Fabiano Bacci, Hunger as Hola, what's up, question mark? How are you doing? We're reading a paper on hunger. Like, this is actually an introductory essay to a whole issue on the philosophy of hunger. And so we're actually going over a bunch of ideas just in a survey fashion to tell the reader what is going to be in the rest of the journal, that journal edition. So, yeah, so a lot of interesting stuff. So feel free to ask questions, but like I said, this is just sort of a review, and they're not getting like into the weeds here. Okay. With the paper of Fabio Bacchini, Hunger as Constitutive Property of a Culinary Work, we move into a different terrain which connects our understanding of hunger to the appreciation of the aesthetic value of certain culinary experiences. Bacchini contends that, in some instances, a certain degree of hunger is a constitutive property of a culinary work. That is, in some instances, a cook poses as a necessary condition for experiencing their work that the diner possesses a certain degree of hunger. Bacchini's piece shows in what ways specific conceptions of hunger are linked to culinary works, making an original contribution to the debate on aesthetic value of dining experiences. Yeah, I think that's like super interesting, because you don't normally ask like someone going to like a museum when you look at paintings that they have to be in any one way to look at the painting. Now, granted, you might like turn the lights down so that the person has, their pupils dilate, and maybe that is part of the experience, that you are getting some sort of imposed physical reaction. And that might be considered similar. But like in this case, you have to show up hungry. Like you can't be stuffed to go eat some cook's food. That would almost be a rude thing to do. To go to show up already having eaten before you went out to a restaurant to get like some good food. It would spoil the meal. And so that's an interesting thing, that the aesthetics of food have to depend on the participation of the people eating the food and their mental and physical state. Okay. Another important essay of the link between conceptual and value-laden issues when it comes to hunger is offered by Simona Giordano's Secret Hunger, the case of anorexia nervosa. In her paper, Giordano studies the coercive treatment for anorexia nervosa. On the one hand, such treatment is sometimes the only way to prevent death, while on the other hand, such practice stands as a concerning form of bodily intrusion, violating even those stated wishes of patients that are intelligently and uncontroversially stated. In fact, Giordano argues that the exceptional circumstances that affect agents with anorexia nervosa do call for the proposal of alternative ethical principles of decision making, which evade those standardly adopted in other spheres of agency. In order to develop her proposal, Giordano surveys cases that appeared before the courts of England and Wales and in the US between 2012 and 2016, offering a conceptual analysis of concepts of such as capacity, best interests, and futility, which are crucially employed in court setting. Giordano's research thus offers a concrete precedent on how the conceptual work provided by philosophers may be of use in delicate legal settings and may also serve society at large to adequately confront eating behaviors such as those characteristically associated to anorexia nervosa. Now that's also a great topic. I have no knowledge of anorexia or eating disorders except that they're terrible. And the question is, people in those states seem to be completely rational, and they say they just don't want to eat. So how do you force someone to eat when they just be like, no, I don't want to eat, and they seem completely rational about it? Are we just going to overrule what appears to be their 100% rational decision making? It's very hard to overrule otherwise rational person. I mean, it's been in the news with conservatorships of pop stars. Like poor Britney Spears was just had like terrible trouble with that. But yeah, and what's it called? Rosamund Pike did a movie where she was an evil doctor stealing people's money. She'd put them in conservatorships and then like steal their money, because like she would just get them declared crazy and then whatever would happen. But like that's the problem here, is that it looks like people are being rational when they're not eating. I mean, a fun fact in the history of well, not so fun. Kurt Gödel died of anorexia. He got paranoid and wouldn't eat any food. He thought he was getting poisoned, and he would only eat if his wife prepared the food. And then I think his wife either got sick or something, or she died, and then he just stopped eating altogether. Anywho, Giordano's paper also serves as a link between the two clusters of papers within the issue, as it underscores the crucial role played by health science and health experts in forming the conceptions of hunger at play in contemporary societies. In Do Feeding and Eating Disorders Fit the General Definition of Mental Disorder?, Maria Cristina Amoretti faces straight up the question of whether feeding and eating disorders should be classified as mental disorders, given the extant definitions employed by health practitioners. Amoretti's starting point is the definition of mental disorder provided in Introduction to DSM-5. Late Bloomer says, there's a young woman on YouTube that is very famously anorexic named Eugenia Cooney, and you wonder how she's still alive. I've seen, I'm pretty sure I've seen who you're talking about. Yeah, and it doesn't look healthy. I'll say that. I'm not a doctor, of course, but it's very worrisome how she looks. So, yeah. But like I said, I'm not a doctor. Maybe people can get by looking like that, but I don't think that's not how most people, at least. Yeah, it's just very worrisome. Okay, such definition sees a disorder as a dysfunction associated with distress and disability. Hence, Amoretti suggests, in order to find out whether eating disorders are mental disorders, we should study, first, in what ways they may be accompanied by dysfunctions, and second, whether they are associated with significant harm. With respect to the latter, Amoretti unpacks the general notions of distress and disability that accompany eating disorders. With respect to whom, by whom, and how should such notions be employed? And what role does the harm requirement play in diagnoses of eating disorders? Yeah, see, here's the thing. It's like, we don't know even, like, this is, I guess, what the whole point of that paper is that we don't even have all the right concepts to talk about eating disorders as a psychological mental disorder. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's more than just mental. The next paper within the issue is contributed by psychology researchers who landed themselves to the challenge of presenting their ideas within the context of a philosophy journal. In the Psychobiology of Hunger, a scientific perspective, Christine Beaulieu and Beaulieu and John Blundell offer a psychobiological framework for hunger, which sees it as a need state mediating between biological and environmental factors. Hunger, they explain, is a conscious sensation that we learn to distinguish from other conscious states such as pain, fear, and tiredness. Such sensation can be objectively measured and marks underlying biological conditions. In fact, they use empirical studies to show that hunger is clearly associated with biological signals. In particular, it is rooted in the relationship between energy expenditure and energy intake and reflects the degree of a person's physical activity. And yet, an explanation of the conscious state of hunger requires also the consideration of environmental influences, which modulate its intensity and periodicity, as well as cultural factors which shape the appropriateness of its expression. Ultimately, Beaulieu and Blundell suggest that the control of the intensity of hunger may be achieved by better understanding the biological and environmental factors that influence it. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely cultural stuff, not even just like you can falling into like environmental and biological, but like you might even think cultural things matter too, because different cultures treat food differently, and so it's not just like sort of the raw environment of having a lot of food, but like sort of like all the associated cultural things that go into like the eating. Like I know that different cultures think of eating in different ways, and so this will even get beyond just like a straight up environment, but like a social environment also. Finally, in From Obesity to Energy Metabolism, Ontological Perspectives on the Metrics of Human Bodies, David Serpico and Andrea Borghini put forward a principled characterization of the biological status of obesity, inspired by the comparison of obesity-related traits with other phenotypic traits such as Mendelian diseases, IQ, and human stature. The paper first discusses how the contemporary study of the genetics and development of obesity makes use of a plurality of methodological and theoretical approaches. Methodology can involve genome-wide association and heritability studies widely adopted in quantitative genetics, or Mendelian methods such as the candidate gene approach or molecular explanations. From a theoretical perspective, instead, researchers can differently conceptualize and operationalize obesity-related traits depending on the aims of their research. By highlighting the plurality of current scientific understandings of obesity, Serpico and Borghini suggest that classification of humans into obese and non-obese are a delicate affair. Their suggestion is to employ conceptual resources of developmental biology and epigenetics to rethink obesity in a framework that is specific to the development of individual agents, that is sensitive to the temporal potentialities of bodily transformations. Okay, so I mean that was just the introduction to this topical edition of Topoi on understanding hunger. We could go into looking at any one of these papers if you guys are interested in it. I mean, like there's like Smellosophy, What the Nose Tells the Mind, that just got published. I actually just saw that paper one of these days. We could go look up one of these food papers if you guys are interested in that. Yeah, but like for me, like I think I said earlier, I had some interest. The ones that were interesting to me is the ones that are said like, how does it direct our sight towards food? Like, what is it about being hungry that, I mean, it's one thing if you're angry and you're focusing on your anger, but like that doesn't mean you're looking at any one specific thing. But like if you're focusing on food, like you see the food, so they're all good.